as the Chief People Officer. It's a new role for us. So my tenure here at Sema4 is 4 months. I have been in HR roles for probably about 15 or 20 years. As is typical in increasing responsibilities. But the first portion of my HR career was in leadership development and talent development and organization development. So OD, training, executive onboarding. And then the second part of my HR career really started, I would say, 5 or 6 years ago when I moved into department and function leadership roles, so leading HR for, a business unit and now a company.
All right.
The most important what?
Strategic initiatives, like strategic goals for HR department. What's the most important?
So I think the most important strategic goal is excellent employee experience, and we are several steps away from that right now because we've been growing so quickly and we have had a small HR department, but we're beginning to invest more in our employees and in HR. So, an example of, or I guess why that is important is because I look at our employees as our most important asset. And all of the data and research around engagement at work and how excited we are, it directly relates to performance of the company. So
what's your plan to make it become true? What's your plan to make the employee feel like they're included in the company? And what's your plan to make them excitement at work? What's your plan for those?
Yeah, so it's going to take longer than we would like because we, being a startup company that, had one of its formative years during COVID, there is a lot of stabilization that has to happen. So, in a way I could use the analogy to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's like an older framework, but if you think about people and their needs, their first need is a very basic level of need, right? Food, shelter, safety. And similarly, I think of we can't do any, well, we could, but we're not, my approach is not to do kind of some of the fancier programming until we have some of the basics revisited. And the basics, so the first part of the plan would be stabilization and at least building credibility around our pay practices. So getting through this COVID era of having had some challenges and, having to implement some changes in people's pay just so that we would, make sure we would make it through. So my first part of the plan is stabilization. And and then I think as a result of that, to really get into a rhythm and a cadence of things associated with individuals' performance and their career trajectory. So, for example, employees being able to answer simple questions about, I would like everybody to understand, what they need to do in order to deliver on their goals and in order to progress their career, right? So, I don't want people to think that in order to progress their career, they have to go to another company. No, we want to create career development, personal development, and growth here at Sema4. So that would be the second phase. And I think, related to that, and in terms of creating joy at work, I think a lot about how it feels to come to my job at work. And so the other part of the plan is really around my ability to get my work done. And that has to do with culture and collaboration. And so hopefully, as you know, one of my areas to focus on also is culture. It has to do with what you already asked about, so clarifying goals and objectives. It has to do with understanding how we make decisions. It has to do with having processes that are robust enough that they create the controls we need for the company, but that they're not, they don't paralyze us. So processes that actually work.
All right. You already mentioned about COVID, and it may take longer than you expect it to be. But is there any other difficulty that you can
There's lots of difficulties, I think one is, the speed with which everyone expects and wants, progress and improvement. So I have a very small team. We can only do so much at one time. Essentially, there are 3 people. Separate from the talent acquisition side, there's only 3 people. And with those 3 people, we have to do all of the onboarding of new hires, all of the employee relations, all of the pay adjustments, promotions, bonuses, merit, and a whole other, a large landscape of challenges. And even when you have the commitments, we don't build those things overnight. So I go back to, like, the biggest challenge will be, people being able to be patient and, being able to trust us that we are really, trying to build the foundation for some solid practices and so that we can continue to grow.
So what is your opinion on future trends in human resources?
Oh, okay, I love that question. So I think it's no secret that future trends are like kind of the rest of other industries. So human resources will become or must become more strategic, and we can do that by using data and oftentimes predictive data. But I think one of the trends is also around innovation. So how can HR be like a strategic weapon and a strategic resource for the company? So I see HR having a role in terms of enabling teams to grow faster, enabling scale, enabling collaboration, enabling problem solving. So when I think of the evolution of HR, I think we're moving toward a world where we begin to see more outsourcing and efficiencies of some of the transactional sides of HR, and a move toward more technology, analytics, and innovation-enabled strategic HR folks who are focused on what I started with, which is really employee experience and how do I get my job done better, faster, how do I enjoy it more, and all of those things about how it feels to come to work.
All right, and this is gonna be the last question for you. How would HR department be an effective partner to different departments within our company?
So I see the role of HR partnering at multiple levels of the organization. So the first one would be exactly what you talked about, right? Being kind of a trusted resource for people to come to for advice, for formal and informal complaints, for support, for tools, on improvement and growth and all of those things. So a trusted resource. The second is I see HR being a real partner to managers and leaders. So I think that when we were talking before about like the strategic role of HR, I think a good model is to have business-focused HR team members who know the business and know the clients and understand the workflows and are able to intervene in the what I would call soft structures. So intervene in the communication, in conflicts, in challenges in getting the work done, and to be able to intervene in a supportive and productive way to improve how we're doing the teamwork. The third way is that HR does have a function in terms of helping the company obtain the business goals. So we have specific responsibilities around financial goals, around payroll, around how much we spend in terms of compensation, and bonuses, and the processes we have around measuring performance and paying merit and different adjustments associated with promotion. And then finally, HR does have a role, particularly in a public company, as a control function. So we are an important part of the checks and balances that a business has to have on how things are done. So, we have to make sure on behalf of the investors that we follow particular rules regarding pay practices, regarding hiring practices, regarding treatment of employees, employment agreements, and all kinds of employment law and legal and financial requirements.